Welcome to QBA 337, Applied Business Statistics. My name is Dr. Todd Daniel, and I'll be your instructor for this course. This is a second of two courses on statistics. You've already had QBA 237, Basic Business Statistics. And you still remember everything you learned in Basic Business Statistics, and we'll just pick up from there. Or maybe we should have a review of some of the things that you may have forgotten about from QBA 237. In fact, that's what we'll do today. Well, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Todd Daniel. Those are my letters. Paid a lot of money for those letters. I mean, you know how this works, right? Because you're doing the same thing, right? You come to school and you give them money and you get to go to class, and at the end of the class, I give you a letter. And if you accumulate enough of those letters, then at the end of 4 years, they give you a piece of paper. And you take your piece of paper to an employer, and they look at it and say, we're going to give you a job. And at the end of that first week, they give you another piece of paper, or maybe just some electronic receipt, and they give you numbers. And those numbers go into your bank account, and you give some of those to the people where you're paying rent or where you bought your car. And you worry about you not having enough numbers at the end of the month. And the people that have more numbers, that's really cool, and that's better than people who don't have numbers. And we get all freaked out about who has more numbers than who. So that's really all life is, right? It's just letters and numbers. Now, we're going to be using this Modern Business Statistics textbook. It's Modern Business Statistics with Microsoft Excel. It's one of the Cengage textbooks. And as you can already imagine, we're going to be using Microsoft Excel for part of the class. But I'm also going to teach you about some other statistical software, specifically JASP. Now, JASP is a program that is built on the R platform. So if you're familiar with R, this is going to work very well for you. In fact, you can actually do some R coding inside of JASP. But one of the reasons that I like it, in addition to it being open source, it's free, is that you don't have to know how to do R coding in order to use that program. So we're actually going to learn about that next week. So what else? These little guys right here. The fuzzy one is Desi, and the short-haired one is Mickey. He's a Chihuahua. You'll see both of them, along with some others, in videos that I have as part of this course. But you'll see them popping up in different places. You'll probably notice Desi, the fuzzy one, he loves the camera. And he'll be playing for the camera and kind of clowning around. Now, Mickey, he's got no use for camera work. He didn't like being on film at all. But there is one video. It's about the lady tasting tea, which I repurposed as the dogs tasting, well, it was actually beef bouillon. Those little guys, I guess I should probably just clarify. So these two little guys, we lost both of them in the last year and a half. Desi, we lost last fall, and it was the same day that we bought a house. So we were at the emergency vet in the middle of the night, and then up early the next morning to sign a contract to buy a new house. It was one of those best of times, worst of times kind of things. He'd been with us for about 16 years. Now Mickey, the little short-haired dog, he was my buddy. Mickey had 2 bouts with cancer. He developed this bump on his side, and turned out that he had a form of cancer that was operable, and so he went through a surgery and he had that removed, and he had to make it to 3 years for him to be clear of cancer. And in that last test, it turned out he had another growth in another part of his abdomen. So we actually did a second surgery with him. What that led to was I got to work with Mickey's surgeon. He needed a statistician for a project that he was doing. So in addition to being Mickey's surgeon, he's also a co-author with me on another paper. So Mickey made a contribution to science. Mickey is a data point in a data set all about this form of cancer. I lost him about, it was August of last year. And if you've ever been loved by a dog, you know how big a space they fill up. And this little guy, I still miss Mick. He had a real special relationship with that little guy. So you'll still see them popping up in different places. But you'll also see some of the other dogs and a few other creatures that we'll meet along the way. It turns out I also like birds. I don't know why, but there's this thing like you reach a certain age and you just want to sit on the back porch and watch the birds in the yard. And in fact, this last week with the snowstorm, I put out the bird feed for the first time this year, and we now have dozens of birds in the backyard. We got a bluebird and we have the cardinals. There's always the male and female, they pair, so you always see them together. So we've seen a variety of birds. I just love watching birds. This particular bird is one of my favorites. Didn't find him in the backyard. This is a Galapagos flycatcher, and he is in the Galapagos Islands. For my 50th birthday, my wife surprised me with a trip, didn't tell me where we were going. I got on the airplane, we flew to Central America, got on another airplane, flew to Ecuador, and I found out where we were when someone said, "Are you ready to go to the Galapagos?" I was so excited. We got to go and see this pristine environment, or at least an environment that's very well protected now. So much so that these little birds aren't really afraid of anybody or anything. So because they're attracted to shiny objects like the glint of light on a camera, as I was taking pictures, one of these little birds landed. He had one foot on my finger and the other on the camera, and he's looking right at me, and I'm looking at the bird, and people are taking pictures of us. It was the most amazing thing. I'm right there looking at this little bird. And then later on, another one of them landed on my hat. And so I had 3 or 4 encounters with this little Galapagos flycatcher that it was wonderful. Okay, so there's some things about me. Now you know a little bit more about me, which I'm sure you're thrilled to learn, but probably you also really want to know more about what are you going to learn in this course. So let me explain the structure of the course and what we're going to be doing. Class meets twice a week, Monday and Wednesday. And typically the way I'll do this is we'll do a lecture on Monday, and then we'll do a lab day on Wednesday. So what that would mean is we're going to be talking about the content during the lecture on Monday, and then we'll be talking about the applied part on Wednesday. Now this week is going to be a little different because we don't have an applied example this week, so we're actually going to do a lecture on both Monday and Wednesday. Next week we're not here on Monday, so we're just going to do the lab on Wednesday. That's when we'll be learning about some statistical software. But as we get into the rest of the semester, you'll see that pattern of Monday, Wednesday. That allows us to spend some time learning about the topics and then actually applying them. You're going to see that pattern in the course really throughout everything that we do. I'll teach you things and then apply what you have learned. The course is set up to work as seated, blended, online. What I want to do is make the same material available for everyone. Now, you will be able to access this regardless of whether we're seated or online, because we have Brightspace, and that is the learning management system that is going to make all this available. Well, what that means for you is if we are not able to be in class on a particular day, no worries, we're just going to roll to online. So Friday, when we had the snowstorm, school hadn't really started up yet, but they did sort of cancel classes. So if that were to happen again, which is not at all unlikely, we'll just go online. This also means, or really comes from, we're all a little gun shy from the thing with COVID where we all went home for spring break and then never came back. Had to roll to online, and it was difficult to make that transition. So if we ever had to do that, we could easily transition and you wouldn't lose any education along the way. It also means if you get sick, or I get sick, we can just do an online course, an online week, and you won't lose out on anything that we're learning about for that week. So whether it is travel, or there's a wedding up in St. Louis, or you had to be away for some other reason, you can just do an online and then roll right back into seated if that's what you want to do. So that gives you the greatest amount of flexibility for the course. Really, the course is designed to be your course. I want it to be yours, and you can make it what you need it to be so that you can learn the most out of this class. I would definitely encourage you to go on to Brightspace. You notice there's a week 0 folder, and In that, toward the bottom, you'll see syllabus and schedule. You should keep a copy of your syllabus. And this is true for every class that you take. It may be that at some point in the future, when you're applying for a graduate school, you need to demonstrate what was the content of a class that you took. And you will want to have the syllabus in order to do that. So on all of your courses, download that syllabus and just keep a copy in case you need it for the future. And the schedule is going to tell you what we're going to be learning about every week. And I'm going to tell you more about the overall structure of the class as we go along. I should probably also mention Cricket. Cricky dog. She's also a Pomeranian. It's just the cutest little dog. Very, very adorable. This is Sophie. She's our newest Chihuahua. She's a real handful. Cute as she can be, got those gorgeous blue eyes, but still pretty skittish. So we're still trying to get her to warm up, and we're seeing a lot of improvement with her. You want to be successful in this course. What are the best practices that you should follow so that you have the best chance of making a good grade? Number one, start early. You will notice there is already a week 0 folder. And mostly what that is installing software that we're going to need. So making sure you have a copy of Excel and JASP and the lockdown browser that we're going to use for tests. There is also in that week 0 a chance for extra credit, but you got to look for it. If you read everything in the week 0, you'll find it. It's there. There's a link. Be up there for 2 weeks. So check out the week 0, find that extra credit, make sure you have the software installed, you're ready to go with that. So start early. And if you finish week 1, the material we're doing today, you can jump into week 2 and start learning about JASP and learning about the software that we have coming up. So there is a lot of flexibility built in with the scheduling. Your best strategy for Brightspace would be each week there is a weekly folder. So this is week 1. Open the week 1 folder, start at the top. If it's something written, read it. If it is a link, click on it. If it is notes, download those and put them in a folder so you'll have them. Work from top to bottom, read everything, click on all of the links, watch the videos, whatever it is, and then when you get to the bottom of the page, you'll see the weekly assignment. Now these will be in 2 different structures. Sometimes I'll use a Cengage assignment where all you do is click on the Cengage assignment and it'll take you to the Cengage website and you'll be able to complete the assignment there. Other times it'll be an assignment that I created, and in that case what you'll see is 2 boxes. One of those boxes is going to have a worksheet and a data set. You download the worksheet, the data set, you'd use the data set to complete the worksheet. You can do that on your time, take all the time you need to do that. So there's no stopwatch on that. But when you are ready, when you have completed everything on that worksheet, then you click on the link to the assignment, and all you're doing is filling in the blanks. You're taking your worksheet, answering the items, filling it in, and you don't have to turn in the worksheet. You can just keep that for yourself. You'll see similar materials on the test as well, so you want to know the techniques that we're using for each of the analyses. So that you only click on the assignment once you have fully completed the worksheet and you're ready to enter the answers. On assignments, you get 2 attempts, so you do it the first time. If you want to go back and do it again, you can. Now, you will see the same questions, but there will be randomization. So if it's a multiple choice item, it was answer A the first time, be careful, it'll be a different answer for A. So there will be randomization with that. And you do have to, you would start fresh. So you have to answer everything as you work through. So you get that. So the whole design is you get lots of options and flexibility and opportunity until we get down to the test. Now the tests, that's one shot. You've got to do it all at one time. You get one chance. That's where you really get to shine and show that you understand the material. They give you lots of opportunity to learn and be flexible, and then you demonstrate that learning when we get to the test. I should also mention too about emails. If you send me an email, let me know that you're a student. So for instance, put QBA 337 in the tagline. So I know it's from a student. The more information you can give me, the better I'm going to be able to answer your question. If you say, hey, it's Jimmy from your one class, and I had a question about the assignment this week, I can't help you. But if you tell me, hey, this is Jimmy Smith from the 337 class, and on the assignment for this week, on number 4, it asked this, and I answered this way. If you can send me screenshots or examples of what you're doing, I can usually just look at that and see what needs to happen, and I can get right back to you. If you give me more information in that email, I'll be able to answer your question really, really quickly. Okay. This is our textbook. It is available to you through the streamlined process, which is all of your materials being available at the very beginning of the semester. So it's preloaded, prepaid. You already have access to this. You do need to connect to the Cengage book, and you'll do that as part of the week 0 tasks. There's a link you click on, it connects, and everything else falls into place. If you have questions about Cengage, there is a link to a help website from Cengage, and also we usually have a Cengage representative on the first floor in the hallway near the elevators, and that person can also answer questions and help you. So they can't help you with stats, but if you have questions about the technology of Cengage, they can get you connected and hooked up. And in fact, I can't, so if you have any technology problems with Cengage, that's where you'll want to go. If you have stats questions, then bring those to me and I can help you with those. We'll be doing discussions using Packback. Now, these are weekly assignments. You have to do the discussions every week, and that's because of the way that Packback is set up. You can't work ahead, and you can't make up for things from the previous week. Anything you do just relates to that particular week. The deadline will be Sunday at midnight, 11:59. It's worth 10% of your grade for the discussion section. And the requirements would be you need to do one question, so you'll post one question, and then post 2 responses to other people. This is something where if you get started early, posting a question, then there's more things to respond to as we get further into the week. I'll also post some starter questions at the beginning that will also kind of help get things rolling. You need to get a minimum of 50 of the curiosity points. You'll see that score accumulating as you're writing. And then if you get less than that, you still get credit, but you get half credit for points below that 50. Okay. So we have been asked to include a statement about AI in the classroom in our syllabus and then talk about it here in class in the introduction. So when I was told I needed a syllabus statement for the use of AI in the classroom, I said, I can do that. And I went to ChatGPT and I said, write a statement for my syllabus about the use of AI in the classroom. And it did a really good job. You'll find that in the syllabus. I was pretty impressed by how well that answered my query. Well, AI is something that I have been encouraging the use of, and yet initially I was a little surprised by the resistance that I was getting from some students, not wanting to use it, being afraid of being accused of cheating or plagiarism. And I totally get that, totally understand that. So I know that as I was encouraging its use, there were a lot of people that weren't so keen on its use. So what I want to do is teach you ways of using AI so that you can use it well, use it responsibly. I'm going to be using AI extensively throughout the course, and I'm going to point out when I'm using it so you can see examples of this. AI works really well for me because I already know what I'm doing. If you're a student and you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you just get at first response, it's like, that looks good to me. When I look at the initial output, I say, okay, that's actually really good. I like the way they worded that. This one, that's just plain wrong. Don't trust AI for doing your stats, by the way. it does not crunch the numbers correctly most of the time. So I still run all of my own stats. I might just have AI help with some of the write-up, but I'm still doing the core of any of the analyses that I'm doing. I want to be in control of that. And I just let AI be a tool to help with, especially with the write-ups. So I want for you to be able to use AI in a way that makes life easier. Now, one of the ways that we're going to try it this semester is I have created a QBA 337 AI tutor. What this is a prompt, and it's a big prompt. You don't have to understand what it is, but you will copy this page and a half of explanation and paste it into ChatGPT or Claude or any other large language model AI that you're using. And it will work as a tutor. It will ask you if you want to upload course notes. And if you upload the PDF of your course notes, it could then explain topics. If you say, on number 4, section 4, I didn't quite understand that. Could you explain it differently? Could you use a different example? And it will tutor you along. It will quiz you. If you were to say, give me 10 items that my professor might ask about for the test, it will give you those items. Now, it's not designed to just give you answers, but it is designed to help answer questions. And I've been playing with it myself. I've been really impressed by how well it works, especially for answering things that for me would be simple. For you, because it's new, they might be a little bit more complex. But you can simply ask it questions, and if it has the reference, especially with the course notes, it does a pretty good job. So I want to try that this semester. And I'm also I have posted for you a podcast. So this is brand new. In week 0, you'll see a podcast. It's 2 people or 2 AI voices. It's like they came to class and they read the notes and they listened to the lecture and they're talking about what was in the lecture. It's about 15 minutes. It's not a repetition of the course notes. It's just a discussion about them. Now, this is the first time I've tried this, so I really want to get your feedback on this. I'd love for you to listen to that podcast. Tell me if it's helpful. Give me any suggestions to build around that. I'm really interested in finding ways that AI can be beneficial to learning. So now I want to tell you about the course structure. We're going to work on weeks. The week begins on Monday. That's day 1. The end of the week, Sunday night at midnight. Everything from week 1 is going to be due at the end of week 1. The overall course is structured as 4 4-week blocks. Block A comprises weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everything from week 1 is due at the end of week 1. Everything from week 2 is due at the end of week 2. At the end of week 4, that's when we'll have our first test. The test is going to come in 2 parts. There will be the theory-related information from lectures, anything that could be asked as multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, matching, those kinds of items. It's about the content that you're learning about. That's the lecture part. And then we'll have the applied section. For the applied section, you'll have a worksheet and you'll have a data set. You download your data set, you download your worksheet, you use that worksheet to analyze the data, you write your answers back on your worksheet. You can take all the time you need to do that. So you're not being timed on that. When you get to the applied test, however, you'll have, like 30 minutes. All you're doing is filling in the answers. You won't be doing any analysis. You already have completed that. You just simply be filling in those answers. There will be some cases where you won't use every answer, but it will always go in the same order. So maybe I ask 4 things about an item, and then on the test, I'll ask you just one of those 4, and we'll do that for several items. So you will always go in the same order. There will be lots of hints as to like what question is what, so you shouldn't have any trouble knowing where you are in the test. Answer all those. The theory part, I think the time limit on that is 90 minutes. There is a study guide already available. So then you'll take that study guide, you'll be working on the theory portion. You can work on the applied portion as we go or all at once, however you want to do that. Here's the thing. All of that, test 1 is going to be due at the end of week 4. Now, so far I've been talking about due dates. When we get to the end of week 4, we're going to then move on to block B. At the end of week 5, that's the hard deadline for block A. That means everything from block A must be turned in, completed. If not, it gets scored as a 0, and that doesn't change. So, if you want to work ahead, no worries. If you got to Sunday night on week 4 and you thought, man, I'd like to have another day or so to study for this, you can do that. But you have to have everything completed by the hard deadline. So that's the only thing that can get you. As long as you meet that hard deadline. You have to respect the hard deadline, as they say in coding language. Respect this. That means it doesn't change. There's no pseudo commands in statistics. So when you get to, boom, this deadline, that's where the door slams shut. Everything that is empty gets graded to 0, and we move on. So just keep that in mind. You have that extra week of buffer, but if you decide to wait until the very end of that week and then you're up in Kansas City and your computer crashes and it's like, I can't help you. You have to have it done by that deadline. That one is coded in, and that's where everything shuts down. So lots of flexibility. There's just a few things that you have to be aware of and make sure that you get them done. So here's the big picture. Block A is weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we get to block B, the hard deadline for A is at the end of week 5. We move into the third block. The hard deadline for block B is the end of week 9. The last block, hard deadline for block C, is at the end of week 13. So we get to block D, and when we get to week 15, we have the test. It's the same idea. We have the applied section, we have the theory section, as we've always done, but this is also finals week. And so we'll have a comprehensive final, but it will cover the first 3 blocks. This means during finals week, or maybe we'll say at the end of finals week, you will have done the theory, the applied for test 4, a deep dive into block D, and then a comprehensive summary of A, B, and C. That really wraps up the entire course. The final deadline for the entire course is the Thursday of finals week. And that's when everything closes, and then we have graduation the next day. And usually I come in early on that Friday. I download the grades. I have a spreadsheet that I use to grade. I can drop all the grades into that. I'm going to be generous with the rounding, and I'll usually add in some extra points. So if you are on the border between A and B, there's a good chance you'll round up. So do the best you can, but don't stress if you're just on that borderline. You got this in your favor, okay? But I'll come in early on Friday, I'll do the grading. I have posted all of my grades by 10 o'clock on Friday, and I'm on summer vacation at that point. So it goes really, really quick when we get to the end. That's the one deadline. You have to have it done by then. All right. So now that you know about the structure of the course, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to do something completely different. Earlier when I was introducing myself and telling you about the dogs and the birds, I mentioned my wife, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about her because she's pretty amazing. She is a psychologist, and she works with some of the most difficult cases in a hospital setting, and I don't know how she does it. I wouldn't have the patience for doing what she does. She is just brilliant at what she does. Now, the fact is, early on in my career, I sort of dabbled in the clinical side of psychology. That was actually my degree, my master's degree, which then led into working at a university, and they needed a stats teacher in the psych department. And so I realized I really like stats a whole lot more than I like the clinical side. And so that's the beginning of my journey into statistics. However, I have a little bit of a background in clinical, and sometimes when we meet people, they will say to my wife and I, "Oh my gosh, you're both psychologists? Like, you must be reading my mind." And the answer is I have had a lot of courses, but I've never had one in mind reading. On the other hand, I've been kind of interested in mind reading, and I've studied it a little bit. I practiced. I feel like I'm getting kind of good at it. So I wanted to see if I could do an experiment in mind reading and see if it really works. So for this, I'm going to need a volunteer. Would you volunteer? I won't embarrass you. I promise you can stay right where you are. All you need to do is pick a card. So pick one of those, make it like your card. Focus on that card. You have it in your mind already. Okay, so, and tell me your name again.
Josh.
This is Josh. You've picked your card, and you remember the color and the suit. Okay, so I'm going to read your mind. By the way, did you notice I had to ask him his name? You ever wonder, like the people that claim to be like dog psychics, they always have to ask the dog's name. Like if there's one thing the dog knows, if you could read the dog's mind, if there's one thing the dog knows, it should be the dog's name. Anyway, so mind reading, and I had to ask you your name. Right, so here we go. Ready? Now, I know what your card was, and I have removed it. Did I get it? It's not there. Wow. So this mind reading stuff really works. Are you impressed? Now, you may wonder, why do I begin a course about science and statistics with a silly example like mind reading? And the answer is because there are many claims of truth in the world. Like this one, the average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. The average attention span of a human is 8 seconds. Is that true? You will see claims, and you need a way of evaluating those claims. There are many claims that are intuitively true. And the very worst way to evaluate those claims is by the level of agreement with things you already believe. Like, yeah, that sounds about right. Or, I can see why that'd be true. Or, yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was the case. Because it agrees with something you already believe doesn't make it true. We need a way to evaluate these claims because there are people who will make claims, and then it turns out they really want you to buy something from them, or vote for them, or go to their church, or join their multi-level marketing program, or buy their new cryptocurrency. People will make claims, and you need a way of evaluating those claims to separate truth from falsehood. And the best way of doing that is the scientific method, looking for fact and evidence and reality. So I've started doing that. I'm kind of nerdy, so when we go grocery shopping, I'm busy taking pictures of all the advertising. Like this one that says, this pizza, 20% more pepperoni. Anytime you see claims that involve percent signs, you need to ask yourself, compared to what? Because 20% more has to have some kind of reference. And the reference is right there in that tiny print. Something about their other kind of pizza. 20% more pepperoni. The large print giveth, and the small print taketh away. You need to know how to evaluate this. Now, this one, I'm not even sure if it's a claim. The world's top 1% of coffee beans. Is that saying that this bag contains the world's top 1%, or we only use the world's top 1%? Is that even a claim? And sometimes when people say things in a little oblique, just clarifying, like, now, are you saying that? And repeating that back to them in very specific language, sometimes you'll see how quickly they'll back away. Well, I'm not actually saying that. Where's the evidence to support a claim? This one right here, I like this. America's #1 most loved multi-cooker. Do you have a most loved multi-cooker? Is there a multi-cooker you feel especially strongly about? America's most loved. It doesn't mean it's the most reliable or the best or the most efficient or the least expensive. America's #1 most loved. How are we even going to quantify that? And I also need to know how many other multi-cookers are in the running. What's the comparison? If this is the first product to market, of course it's #1. As soon as there is a competitor, maybe it quickly falls to #2 or 3 or 4 as the more competitors come into the market. I need to know something about the timing on this and what exactly you mean by most loved. Is this really a good quality machine? That's what I want to know. This one comes from MSU website. Our average loan debt at graduation is lower than the state average. Does that mean that Missouri State University has the lowest or a lower tuition cost than half of the universities in Missouri? It kind of implies that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And I also need to know, what are we comparing to? Is it just other state institutions? Or do they lump in all of the private institutions as well? I mean, you add in Wash U and some of the more expensive schools around Kansas City, it'd be real easy to stay below average with that comparison. So I want to know who is in that comparison pool. Is it very similar schools or very different schools? And if we're including a lot of very different schools, then being below average doesn't mean quite as much as if our variability is quite small. Now this one I know has to be true because it has a picture. It says lumber prices have plummeted, and it has a graph, and the line goes up, and then the line goes down. Along the bottom of this axis, you see the dates for the months. But what you don't see is the y-axis. There's no indication of what is being measured. And what that allows them to do is to magnify differences. So if you have a scale that runs, let's say, from 1 to 100, but you focus in on just between 30 and 31, you could magnify that difference, and now it looks like there's a huge change, even though there's really not. And when we back it out and we look at that 1 to 100 scale, we see it's just a flat line. So I need to know what's on that y-axis to make any kind of judgment as to what that graph is really indicating. So here's what I want. I want for you to learn statistics, but I also want you to learn to think statistically. I want you to learn something that when you go shopping, when you go to fill up your car with gas and you see advertisements and claims, I want you to start thinking about that. Like, what are they saying there? In fact, that might make a really good start for your discussions on PackBack this week. So if you see a claim and you take a picture of that, you post that in PackBack and ask a question about it and maybe offer your thoughts on what this claim might be. What is this actually saying? Or maybe you find something that just doesn't quite make sense or just isn't quite right. That would be a great discussion starter as well. So with that, we are ready for a review of basic statistics, everything you've already forgotten about statistics. And I think this would be a really good place to stop for today and pick up with this review on Wednesday. So thank you so much for being here. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.